What I do hate is people or a woman that comes along or a man that comes along and disrupts a family unit and disrupts. I mean, I went on about the Beckhams and what's happened there. And for me, very similar situation where this woman comes along and all of a sudden the whole family dynamic is absolutely changed. Meghan and Harry's false tour. So obviously Kate and William, she can't travel at the moment because she's had, a lot of illness. It's been a lot of sickness. So they decide to bring and make up this entire fake tour of Australia. And what gets me more than anything, it's not only a fake tour, it takes it to further extremes where she's gone as a judge on MasterChef. I mean, one minute she wants to be royal, she wants to keep her titles, and then she's going down this fully commercial path of, I want to be a judge on MasterChef. I found the whole thing out here really, really distasteful, the way that it was done. Every time they went round, the cameras would be very, very tight in on them, any publicity that came out, because there was so few people attending, going out to see them, going out to visit them. Harry then goes to fly and goes to Ukraine to talk about how bad the US is and how shocking, Donald Trump is and everything that's going on right when his dad is about to get on a plane and do a tour of the US. Now listen, you keep saying, Harry, that you're trying to repair relationships and you're trying to, get back into the royal fold. Well, this is not trying. This is just rubbing salt in the wound again and again and again. I'm sure you did not consult anyone in your family before you hopped on a plane and flew over for your fake royal tour. I'm sure you did not consult your father about flying to the Ukraine and bagging the US just when he's about to go. And this is the thing that upsets me. A whole family, it's the disruption. And I'm sure all of you have seen this in many situations. We're not talking about royalty, both the Beckhams and the royal family. We're talking in everyday life. You see that person come into a family and absolutely disrupt the entire dynamics. So what's my advice? My advice would be, if I was Prince Charles right now, I would strip them so quickly of their titles. I'd say to them, you want your privacy. For a couple that want their privacy, they're continually in the press. And people go, oh, just leave them alone. They're the ones saying they need the privacy. They're the ones saying they need the security. They're the ones complaining about constantly they've got a complaint. And then they're the ones that are out there in the press. They're the ones that are pushing, to be the Duke and Duchess. So if they really don't want to be a part of all of that, well, then walk away, strip them of their titles, and maybe they'll learn some respect. Maybe they'll learn respect for the family and what they've been born into. And I think it's really important to look at family dynamics and, not everyone is going to get along with each other. And I'm not saying that, everyone should have loved and welcomed Meghan. But I think from an outsider's perspective, it looked like, she was pretty much knew what she was marrying into. She wasn't some young 20-year-old like Princess Diana that hadn't really lived, in the world, hadn't really been out there, wasn't really worldly. Like this girl had been around. She had worked on Suits. She'd been an actress, many, many situations of talking about, her jumping into DMs, her being photographed in the front of, Buckingham Palace, but then having no idea who Harry was. It was all this, this pretense and this falseness around it. And I think, for overall harmony, a lot of the time you have to suck it up and to move on and get on it within a family. So I think if they're pulled into line a little bit, if Charles actually did threaten or even do it, take away their titles, or it might be left for Prince William to do when he takes reign, that he'll take away their titles. Because I think they need to learn some level of respect of the royal family of any family. I think there's not certain rules, but, everyone's got to try. Everyone's got to try and make the effort. And look, I know there's no one actually ever knows what goes on behind closed doors. And I'm talking from the couch. I don't know Meghan and Harry personally, Meghan and Harry. But from what I've seen and what I've seen played out in the press, and, obviously what's been said about her, how she treats staff, how she goes through staff, how she treats people. I think that's all pretty much a projection of what someone is. And I mean, I know when I ran my business, I had, the same staff for years and years and years. And I think that does show the personality and the character of some people. If you look at a family, not everyone has to get along perfectly. Not everyone has to agree. But one thing, my family have always taught me, no matter whether someone does something wrong, no matter whether someone steps out of line, you are always family, and you forgive and you forget and you move on. And I think that's a really important trait to be able to have. For the sake of Harry and Meghan's children, Archie and Lilibet, wouldn't it be lovely if they knew their cousins? Wouldn't it be lovely if they had that whole connection? Parents don't realise when they have a feud and they drive a wedge, you're not just driving a wedge for you and your own parents or you and your own family, you're actually denying your children of lifelong relationships. And look, I've seen this happen not only with, in-laws, I've seen it happen when, a family member goes on to have another family, so it's a second wife and it's the second lot of children. That second wife virtually wants to shun, all the existing adult children. They want to take that, either mother or father and pretend that, they never had a family before. It's only all about their family now, and basically denies a relationship for the older children. And it's so sad. You see this the whole time in families, and it's very, very common. And I think the most important thing is, if you're the person denying your older children, you're also denying your younger children of that relationship, because at the end of the day, they do have a half sister. They do have a half brother. They do have a half sibling that you are denying them of that relationship, and you have got to explain that to them down the track. And that's the thing Meghan and Harry are going to have to do. She's got that on her hands. She's going to have to explain why they don't have a relationship with their cousins. Yes, they might have a relationship with 5 other celebrity kids in LA or whatever, but they are of royal blood, and they are being denied that. Just as, the child of a second marriage, they are denying that new mother or new father is denying their second family of relationships with the older, and you'll have that on your hands. So I know I'm talking about Meghan and Harry, and I know I've spoken about the Beckmans before, but I'm really talking about family relations in general, and the ability to be able to get over adversity, the ability to be able to understand the importance of relationships. And I think when you look at these second marriages, these second or third marriages, and new children and stepchildren, you've really got to think about the consequences of denying them of relationships. Or even in Meghan and Harry's case, where the parents are estranged, they should still be keeping in a relationship with Charles, with Lilibet and Archie. I think that's the most important thing, is the maintaining of that relationship. And regardless of whether adults feud, they shouldn't bring it in to children. And I feel very, very strongly about that. I've seen some families feud, and it's filtered down to the children, and it should never ever become that. If adults don't agree, they should never punish the children and affect the children's relationship. And I must say that's something that our family is really, really good at. Over the years, we've never, we've always remained close regardless of what's happened in life. And I think that's, a really great thing to take forward, regardless of whether you're the royal family, regardless of whether you're the Beckhams. It's just so heart-wrenching to see these family feuds. But anyway, my whole podcast today was not about family feuding. It was about my grievances and lack of respect that someone like Harry has for his father. And regardless of what your path you want to take in life, you've got to look at the consequences and how they relate back and how they affect your family. And I think Harry's been very, very foolish with that, especially this latest Ukraine thing where he hasn't thought about his dad and Camilla about to go to the US. So Harry and Meghan, I think you need to think twice about your actual roles and where you want to be placed. And if you do want all this fame and fortune, you do want to be charging millions of dollars for Netflix shows, well, then don't turn around and ask for privacy and protection and security. And, you want to be known as, the royals, but then you don't want association with them. So I think you've got to be really careful where you're treading. You're trying to have your cake and you're trying to eat it too, and it's not working. The Spotify podcast didn't go well. The Netflix hasn't gone really well, is because it's the duplicity that you're showing in your lives that people are not buying. And I think if you were authentic and you did leave and you went, I left because of these reasons, but then I don't want the spotlight and we want to go off and live our lives, people would have respected that. But it's the continual disrespect. But it's not just the disrespect for your own family, being the royal family, it's also you're losing credibility within society, because you're saying on the one hand you want privacy, but then the next thing you're wanting to be out there publicly. And look, don't get me wrong, everyone has the right to make a living, but there's plenty of different ways to make a living, because you said you don't want to be in the spotlight. So my advice to you is think of how you want to be portrayed and think of the life you want to live. And this will lead me to my next week's podcast, which is all about authenticity and about leading an authentic life. And the problem is, Meghan and Harry, you are not leading an authentic life. You're saying one thing and doing another. You're really green and then you're flying on a commercial jet. Like it's always duplicitous. It's, I'm really into recycling and I want to, recycle this bag when she was doing her cooking show. And then next thing you know, she's in a, $9,000 Prada outfit. Like, don't try and be one thing and humble and then another. That's what people aren't buying, is the falseness and the fakeness. So be authentic. If you know someone that's living a duplicitous life, if you know someone that needs to hear this, if you know someone that's a royal fan like we all are, and needs this advice, pass it on to them. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because then you will not miss one. And love to know your feedback. I know this is a passionate topic. Comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Am I right? Am I wrong?